Peter.
Thank you.
Okay, item 13, Corporate Finance Report.
Good afternoon, everybody. How are you? I'm not sure if you've met Andrew. Andrew Jeffries is the Treasury and Financial Policy Manager.
Welcome.
Recruited last year, so this is probably his first time in front of the whole council. Good luck. We had the pleasure of presenting the 6-monthly report, Corporate Finance Report. It focuses on those two key areas. We feel are two key areas. One being the Treasury and borrowing policies, and the second one is debts and to what money people owe us. We focus on those two to give a bit of consistency in this reporting. So what we'll do is that I'll get Andrew to go through the Treasury side, and then I'll go through the debt side. Okay, so Andrew.
Great. Okay. I think probably the key points from the Treasury side of things are the interest rate repricing breach. There's a little explanation there in the report of what is going on there, and you'll notice also the debt has gone up a little bit over 200 million, and that's largely due to the 200 million of pre-funding that we've done for the March rollover of debt with LGFA, and I can explain that too if there's any questions on that. But other than that, I'm happy just to take questions on the report.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of the breach on the interest rate side, we're slowly coming out of that. So that's the pre-hedging that was done back in 2013, 2014?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any questions on the Treasury side? Okay. Thank you.
Easy. Thank you. So going back to debtors, the basically we're currently tracking a small increase in overall debtors between September. Sorry, we're talking non-rates debtors here. So small increase over the period since September. There've been very small activity in this area. The main area which we can attribute to is the interest charged on the LINZ, outstanding LINZ money has increased the general debtors, but otherwise you can see that down the resource consent, building consents, they're pretty even over since the last quarter, so it gives you an idea of what goes on there.
Len, can I just ask on the LINZ outstanding payment, that has been around for quite some time. Are we making any progress on that?
We've included that in the public excluded section of this meeting, but we are in correspondence with LINZ. They've come back to us with a couple of issues that we have responded to, and I understand that Mr Adamson has sent through and received back correspondence on that situation.
Okay. Carry on.
So that's the general debtors, and that, as I say, there's some small movement there. What we tend to do is also include the debts written off during the period. This gives the councillors an idea of that of the delegated authority that staff members have in which to operate. And in the period, an additional $77 million was $77,000 was written off to have a total year-to-date figure of 106,000. Some of these you'll see are in the areas of the library books, arrears, and street pole damage due to unable to recover and things like this. So it gives you an idea of where the delegated authority is being applied. When we get down to the rates debtors, we attempt to include different things to the quarterly reports. If we talked about the same issue constantly, you tend to getting the information gets a bit stale. But it's quite interesting that on page 89 of that table, the net rates debtors, which reflects the total amount that is owed to us as at a point in time, so 31st of December here, and it shows it's in credit. Now the reason of this is because a sizable proportion of our constituents actually pay in advance. So therefore, we've actually got a credit balances at that point in time of $20 million. They've paid the instalments 3 and 4 early, and so therefore And we're one of those constituents. Council pays all its rates in August, so that's it. We do it in advance. So in effect, all general rates at that point in time, we show a credit balance. The actual amount that's actually in debt, and I've basically included a couple of charts for people to have a look at just to get an idea. And this basically shows, that we actually have a credit balance versus a debt balance, and they sort of move in a cycle whereby you basically raise all the invoices for the rates on a quarterly basis, and as the money comes in after those invoices, it just generally goes through, and at 2 points in the year we show basically a credit position, and that's basically straight after these reports are done. So that gives you an idea of a feel on how that money comes in. What we've also done is included in this report an idea of what our rates arrears are looking like on a historical basis, and what years we're trying to get this money back on. And the majority of these cases we have arrangements in place with ratepayers in order to recover this money. So that's actually a good thing. There's about 1,400 of those things in place, which actually provide a bit of information. And we also have included in this time a site map of Christchurch. Now this is representative because you don't want to go down to every street and nook and cranny, but this is a postcode suburb review of all of the arrears in the council. And so basically it shows that there's very little concentrated risk, that actually over the whole Christchurch we've got pockets and pockets of where these ratepayers are. So it's not a single one area which actually is causing concern. And remember, this is representative. If you have a dot over Clearwater, it doesn't mean that all those debts are there. That means just the Belfast region and under the postcode that the New Zealand Post provides us. And similarly around the airport, you've got a couple of highlighted blocks here. I've not included the Akaroa. It's insignificant on this report, so I've actually just let Banks Peninsula work out, but it is available if we need it. So that just gives councillors an idea of things. And once again, it's not something that you'd bring up all the time. We'll come to council with different sort of pieces of information just that help you understand some of what our rates issues are, or where our big debtors are, to give you an idea. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to field any questions.
Well, thanks, Len. That's very interesting information, especially around the arrears and some of the charts in terms of the cash flows of rates coming in. And primarily in terms of the arrears, they're mainly within the last year. Most of them.
The bulk still falls into that last quarter of 18.
Yep.
And so yes, and therefore those are the ones that come in. And from the September report to this report, there's a huge drop-off on that. And you'll see that we're always recovering something from every month. So, there are some times where people are falling off the list as well. So you can see the movement of the change of numbers as well as the change in what the value is owed. That's at the bottom of page 89. That shows you those two areas there. So we are pulling back money all the time against those things.
Great. Andrew?
Just drilling down a little bit further into this map that you've provided, which just contains some potentially useful information. When the text at the top, the relative size of each marker reflects relative value of outstanding arrears. Is that relative to arrears across the whole city, or relative to the amount of rates that would be paid in that area if everybody was paying on time?
It is purely an indicator as the value of rates against the whole bill that are in arrears. So up and towards the left where Christchurch Airport, they'll be in the thousands of dollars. But if you have a look going towards more into the central city, they're in the hundreds of thousands. So it's actually the size of debt owing in those areas, relative debt owing. So I could do it by number of clients or by value of the debt. And that the first one didn't sort of give an indication of who was actually sort of meaningless of how many the number is, but actually the value is more what I'm trying to report on.
So it's the value relative to the value of debt across the whole city?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So just drilling down a little bit further into your deliberate omission of Banks Peninsula. Of course, Banks Peninsula, and I noticed that Littleton is actually quite significant. Banks Peninsula, of course, is more than just Littleton, which is significant, and Akaroa, which you described as insignificant. There's Governor's Bay, there's Diamond Harbour, there's Little River, there are a number of other settlements as well. Were all of those insignificant and the only significance in Banks Peninsula was Littleton, or did you not look at that?
No, because if you look in Christchurch itself, there's probably 12 postcodes, but as you move towards Akaroa, you actually develop another 8. So that would take it from 12 to 20. And so the actual dots that are actually would move out that way actually are small in comparison to what these ones that are appearing.
Because of the size of population?
Correct. Well, and to the relative size of their debt against the total debt, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions on the arrears? Okay, that's all very good. So we have a resolution to receive the report, note the status of the Treasury policy and the rates and non-rates debtor balances. Do I have a mover for that? Moved Sarah, seconded Dion. Any debate? I'll put the motion. All in favour say aye. Aye. Against. That's carried. Thank you very much, Len.